I'd always wanted to see Beyoncé live, and when she announced a tour stop at Soldier Field in Chicago, I was determined to go. None of my friends were able to join, money issues, work schedules, so I ended up with a single ticket. Everyone said, "It'll still be fun. You'll meet nice people there." I told myself the same. After all, a Beyoncé show is all about unity, love, and celebrating great music. What could go wrong? It was a mild summer evening, and the streets around the stadium were full of fans in glittering outfits, bright smiles, and inventive costumes. Vendors sold sparkling headbands, glow wands, and all sorts of souvenirs. I felt a bit anxious going alone, but the buzz of the crowd comforted me. Once I passed through security, I followed the signs to my section in the lower bowl. The seat wasn't bad, center-ish view, not too close, but decent enough to see Beyoncé's every move once she graced the stage. Around me, groups were laughing and taking selfies. I introduced myself to a pair of women next to me who were friendly enough. They were excited about the set list, discussing which songs might appear. I nodded along, smiling, though we were still strangers. I missed having a friend with me, but I told myself I could handle it. As we waited for the opener, I scanned the stands. That's when I noticed him. A man sitting a few rows behind me. He wore a plain gray t-shirt, no concert merch, no bright colors like most fans. Arms crossed, posture stiff. He seemed out of place. Initially, I thought nothing of it, but every time I glanced back, his eyes were locked on me. He wasn't checking his phone, wasn't talking to anyone, just staring straight in my direction. A prickle of unease ran down my spine. I tried to ignore it, probably just a random guy daydreaming. Still, it bothered me. I decided to get up and grab a soda before the show started, hoping to shake the feeling. I told the women next to me I'd be right back and headed up the steps to the concourse. The concourse was packed with fans buying drinks, food, and merch. I took my time at a soda stand. After paying, I circled around a few merchandise tables, trying to lose track of time. Eventually, I returned to my seat. Before sitting down, I glanced behind me. The man had moved closer. He was now just a few rows back, directly aligned with my seat. This wasn't coincidence. He was following me with his eyes, changing his position to maintain a perfect vantage point. Fear fluttered inside my chest. I considered telling security, but what would I say? A man keeps staring at me. Without a crime, would they act? Still, I decided if he got any closer, I would ask for help. The opener started, and the crowd cheered. I tried to enjoy it, focusing on the music, but my body remained tense. After a few songs, I peeked back. He was still there, still watching. When the opener finished, I pretended I needed something else. I stood up, headed to the aisle again. This time, I took a different route around the concourse, hoping he wouldn't follow. I paused at another drink stand, scanning the crowd. Then I spotted him leaning near a pillar, eyes scanning for me. The moment he saw me, he dipped his head slightly, acknowledging that yes, he knew where I was. My heart hammered. He was definitely targeting me. I mustered courage and approached a nearby staff member, a woman in a stadium polo shirt. I kept my voice low. "There's a man who keeps following me around. I'm alone and he's making me uncomfortable." The staffer's face grew concerned. She asked for his description. I pointed him out from behind a cluster of people. He stood half hidden, as if listening. She said she'd contact security, told me to wait by her side. We waited a few minutes. The staffer radioed someone, describing him. By the time a security guard arrived, the man had slipped away. The security guard asked if he'd approached or threatened me. I shook my head. He just stared and moved closer. The guard said they would keep an eye out, but without a direct threat. Their hands were tied. I understood, frustrated and scared. Back at my seat, I tried to appear calm. Fans around me were laughing, excited for Beyoncé. The lights dimmed, and the stadium erupted with cheers. The main event was about to start. If I focused on the music, maybe I could forget him. Maybe he gave up. Beyoncé emerged in a blaze of lights and sound. The crowd screamed, a wave of joy washing over everyone. For a moment, I almost relaxed, but a few songs in, I sensed someone behind me, not physically touching, but close enough to feel their presence over the roar of the music. I turned slightly. There he was, in the aisle behind my row, leaning forward. Fear surged. He smiled at me, a thin, unsettling smile, and whispered something I couldn't fully catch. It sounded like, "You shouldn't be alone." My stomach twisted. I wanted to scream, but the music was deafening, and everyone was enthralled by the performance. I tried catching the eye of a security guard down the aisle, but he was focused on another section. The man retreated again, vanishing into the crowd as if playing a game with me. I couldn't take it anymore. I left my seat mid-song, pushing through annoyed fans. I needed help. In the concourse, I flagged down another guard. I told him everything, voice trembling. "He's followed me all night." Now he whispered at me. The guard took me seriously this time and said, "Let's move you to a secure area. Is anyone here with you?" I admitted I came alone. The guard led me to a staff-only corridor behind a curtain. The sound of the concert dulled slightly here. He radioed others to look out for the man I described. "Stay put. We'll try to find him," he said. I asked about leaving early. The guard said sure, but the exits were crowded. He'd need another staffer to escort me out safely. Tears welled up. I'd come to see Beyoncé's incredible show, yet spent half the night dodging a stranger. I felt robbed of the experience. Still, safety came first. I texted a friend. Being stalked at show, getting escorted out, my friend was horrified and told me to do what I must. Time passed slowly. I heard roars of applause, big hits playing without me. Eventually, 2 staffers arrived and said they'd walk me to an exit once we were sure the man wasn't lurking outside. They asked if I recognized anyone else he might be with. I said no, just him, always him. I followed them down a quiet hallway. At the end, a small door led to a semi-private exit. They checked outside first, scanning the area. The night air felt cool compared to the stadium's warmth. A few people were leaving early, maybe to avoid traffic. The staffers flanked me, and I felt a surge of gratitude. At least they took me seriously. As we approached a rideshare pickup zone, I couldn't help scanning the shadows. Could he be out here too? One staffer reassured me. "We've got eyes out. We won't leave you alone until you're safe in a car." Relief and sadness collided in my chest. I missed half the show, lost a night of joy because of this creep. But I was alive, unharmed, that mattered most. A couple of cars pulled up. I had a rideshare booked on my phone. The driver's name and car matched. I climbed in, thanked the staffers profusely, and locked the door. We pulled away, merging into city traffic. I finally exhaled. Safe. On the ride home, I replayed the night in my head. Who was he? Why target me? I had done nothing but arrive alone and enjoy the show. Maybe that was enough for him, someone vulnerable. The thought made me shudder. I reported it to stadium security via email the next day, gave them details. They responded politely, saying they'd keep records, but without a crime, not much else could be done. I learned a bitter lesson. Even in a place devoted to celebration and community, danger can find you. I still admire Beyoncé and cherish her music, but the memory of that night lingers. Next time, I'll bring a friend, stay alert, and trust my instincts. I refuse to let fear stop me from enjoying life, but I'll never be as naive. I share this story because people assume concerts are carefree. Mostly they are, but we must watch out for each other. If you see someone in distress, step in. If I had panicked sooner, maybe I could have enjoyed more of the show. But I'm grateful I left safely, and that's what counts. In the end, the man never got close enough to harm me. He never laid a hand on me or said more than a whisper. But his presence, his stare, his silent pursuit was enough to haunt me. A reminder that darkness can slip into even the brightest events. I'd never forget that warm September night in Los Angeles. Beyoncé was performing at the SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, and I'd secured tickets months in advance. My sister, Cara, and I made a whole weekend of it, flying in from our small town, booking a cheap motel near the venue. We spent the day in the city, shopping for outfits, picking up glow bracelets for the show. Everything felt perfect, a long-awaited dream come true. The concert itself was spectacular. Fireworks, dazzling lights, Beyoncé's voice reverberating through our bones. Surrounded by tens of thousands of fellow fans, we danced, sang, and cried tears of joy during the ballads. The show ended late, close to midnight. The crowd lingered, taking selfies and basking in the afterglow. Our rental car was parked in a multi-level garage a couple of blocks away. We followed a river of fans onto the sidewalks, chattering about our favorite moments. Cara and I were giddy, replaying the set list in our minds. As we reached the parking garage, we noticed it was less crowded than expected. Many fans had chosen closer lots or rideshares. We shrugged it off. We'd saved money by parking here. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed softly, illuminating rows of cars. We were on the 4th level, and as we climbed the stairs, our voices echoed. The energy of the show was fading now, replaced by a quiet emptiness. We passed a few groups of people, some laughing, some yawning, heading to their cars. Eventually, we emerged onto our level and realized we were mostly alone. A few distant figures moved near the far corners, but our row looked deserted. As we walked toward the car, a figure stepped out from behind a pillar about 20 feet ahead. A man, maybe in his 30s, wearing a simple black hoodie and jeans, stood there, arms folded. At first glance, nothing strange. Maybe he was waiting for a friend, but he didn't call out or check his phone. He just stood still, looking in our direction. Cara slowed her pace, nudging me. "Do you know him?" she whispered. I shook my head. He was a stranger. We tried to act casual, but anxiety prickled. We were two women alone late at night. The man didn't move as we approached. We had to pass him to reach our car. As we got closer, I noticed his intense stare. Eyes locked on us without blinking. He said nothing. Cara and I exchanged a glance. When we were about 10 feet away, I mustered a polite, nervous smile and said, "Excuse us." He stepped sideways slightly, not fully out of the way, forcing us to brush past at a precarious distance. My heart hammered as we passed him. No words, just silence and that unsettling gaze. We hurried the last few steps to our car. Cara fumbled with the keys, dropping them once. I hissed, "Hurry," glancing over my shoulder. The man turned slowly, watching us. It felt like prey under a predator's eye. Finally, Cara unlocked the car. I yanked the door open and slid inside, locking it immediately. She jumped into the driver's seat and locked hers too. I exhaled relief, but too soon. The man approached. He tapped lightly on my window. I froze. Cara's hand hovered over the ignition. "Don't open it," I whispered urgently. The man leaned down, face close to the glass. Under the harsh light, I saw he wore a slight smirk. He gestured for me to roll down the window. I shook my head firmly. He tapped again, harder. Our car was boxed in between two vehicles. Driving forward required careful maneuvering. Cara started the engine. The man stepped back as if giving us space. For a split second, hope flickered that he'd just leave. Instead, he walked to the front of the car and stood there, blocking our path out. Panic surged. We couldn't drive forward without hitting him, and reversing wasn't possible, cars lined behind us. Cara whispered, "What do we do?" I suggested honking, so she did 3 short blasts. The sound echoed sharply. The man didn't budge. In that isolated level of the garage, no one responded to our horn. Maybe other fans had already driven off. I scanned around, no guards, no cameras obvious. Had we chosen a too remote spot? I cursed our frugality. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911. My hand trembled as I explained. We're in a parking garage after the Beyoncé concert. A man is blocking our car, acting threatening. The operator sounded calm, said officers would come, asking for our location details. I gave them, voice shaky. The man saw me on the phone and frowned. He stepped closer to the hood. With a sudden movement, he slapped his palm on it, making me jump. Kara gasped. He mouthed something like, "Get out," though I couldn't be sure. We stayed put, doors locked. Time stretched. We honked again, louder, longer. Still no help. The man paced around to the driver's side. He tried the door handle, locked. Kara recoiled, tears in her eyes. He leaned in, saying something we couldn't hear. I guessed he wanted money or to rob us. If that was it, wouldn't he speak up? I held up my phone to show him I was calling the cops. He rolled his eyes, as if annoyed. Then he reached into his pocket, pulling out something dark and thin. A tool? A knife? We couldn't tell. He ran it along Kara's window lightly, a chilling gesture. I whispered to Kara, "Get ready to floor it if he moves away." We waited, hearts pounding. After what felt like eternity, the man stepped back from the car, moving around behind us. I stiffened. He might try the trunk. But no, he just stood at the rear, as if guarding us in place. The waiting was torture. In the distance, an engine revved. Headlights washed over the concrete. Another car appeared on our level. We flashed our headlights frantically. The approaching car slowed, sensing trouble. The man turned toward them, seemingly annoyed at the interruption. In that moment, Kara saw our chance. She started to carefully reverse, inching back to get an angle. The man snapped his head back at us, then lunged toward the side mirror, trying to block us again. But the other car honked, a long, angry blast, and advanced slightly. Facing a second vehicle, the man hesitated. This distraction was all we needed. Kara slammed into reverse enough to angle the car, then shifted into drive, swerving around the man. He pounded on the passenger door with a thud that rattled my nerves. We squealed the tires as we escaped down the ramp, not daring to look back. We exited the garage, shaking, tears in our eyes. We pulled over a few blocks away, breathing hard. I updated the 911 operator, who said officers would check the garage. I wondered if they'd ever find him. Probably not. He seemed experienced at melting into darkness. For hours afterward, neither of us could speak much. The concert's glow was gone, replaced by raw fear and anger. Why us? Maybe he saw two women alone, an easy target. Maybe he wanted to rob or harm us. We'll never know. The police called later to say they found no one matching our description. Just an empty, quiet parking garage. Back at our motel, Kara and I locked the door, triple-checking it. We tried to recall every detail for the report we'd file in the morning. I felt robbed of the joy Beyoncé's show gave me, but relieved we got away physically unharmed. That night, I learned a grim lesson. Even on a night celebrating music and unity, the world's cruelty can intrude. The memory of him standing silently, blocking our car, will haunt me. I'll never park in a deserted upper level again. Never let my guard down just because I came from a place of celebration. We flew home the next day, subdued. I still love Beyoncé's music. No darkness can erase that. But I'll remember to plan better next time. Park in well-lit areas. Leave with the crowd, never alone. Safety must be part of our concert routines. I share this story because people think concerts are just fun. Mostly they are. But predators know the chaos, the distraction, can give them cover. We must stay alert and look out for each other. That's the best we can do in a world that doesn't guarantee our safety, no matter how beautiful the soundtrack. I couldn't afford tickets to Beyoncé's big show at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, just outside New York City. The prices soared beyond my budget. Still, I wanted to feel connected to that night's energy. A friend mentioned a live stream someone was doing via social media, unofficial, shaky phone footage, but better than nothing. I settled in at my small Queens apartment, laptop on my coffee table, excited to catch glimpses of the performance even if I couldn't be there. It was a humid summer night, windows open to catch a breeze. Around me, the city's usual soundtrack. Distant sirens, muffled music from a neighbor's party, footsteps on the sidewalk below. I cleaned my tiny living room, arranged snacks and a drink. If I couldn't attend the show, at least I'd create a comfortable atmosphere. The live stream popped up around 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The account belonged to some fan who promised to stream parts of the concert. Soon, My screen filled with flickering images of a massive crowd. Beyoncé wasn't on yet, but the anticipation was palpable. The streamer's camera panned over cheering fans, bright lights, and giant screens waiting to come alive. I adjusted the volume on my laptop, leaning forward to catch every detail. For a while, I just enjoyed the vibe. The chat on the side scrolled with emojis and excitement. People from all over the world tuned in. Some complained about the shaky camera or poor audio, but I didn't mind. I felt grateful to experience even a fragment of the magic. Then I noticed something odd. In the shaky footage, a figure kept appearing in the frame. Not on stage, but among the crowd. At first, just a glimpse of a man in a baseball cap standing unusually still as people danced around him. The camera moved, losing him. A few minutes later, it caught him again, closer to the camera's position. I thought nothing of it. Big crowd, many faces. But it happened again and again. Each time the streamer turned the camera to show different parts of the stadium, that same man appeared, always closer, somehow looming behind different groups of people. It was strange. Could he be following the person streaming? The chat noticed too. I saw comments like, "Who's that creepy guy?" And, "Is that dude stalking the streamer?" The camera's owner didn't address it. Maybe they hadn't realized yet. My stomach twisted with unease. Here I was, safe at home, and yet I felt nervous for someone thousands of miles away. I tried to reassure myself. Big stadium, lots of coincidences. The show's start neared. The crowd roared on screen, and I heard distant music cues. The camera zoomed on the stage. Soon Beyoncé emerged, and the chat exploded with hearts and praise. For a while, I got lost in the performance. The sound quality was rough, but I recognized hits and danced in my living room, smiling at my own silliness. Halfway through a song, the camera jolted, panning abruptly to the right, showing a glimpse of empty seats at the stadium's edge, and then refocusing on the crowd. The man in the cap appeared again, now just a few rows in front of the streamer. The camera shook violently, as if the person holding it had just realized something was off. The chat flooded with panic. "Run! Get security! Stop filming and move!" I watched, helpless, heart pounding. The streamer whispered something, the audio too garbled to make out. The camera tried to focus on the stage again, but kept wobbling. I imagined the streamer looking over their shoulder, worried about that man. Suddenly, the camera's perspective changed drastically. The fan was moving through the concourse now, showing concrete walls and concession stands. Did they leave their seat to escape him? The audio picked up the hum of the crowd, and once or twice I heard them breathing heavily. The chat urged them, "Find a guard. Don't go alone." I leaned closer to the screen, feeling ridiculous. I was at home, safe, yet I felt invested in this stranger's plight. Should I do something? Call someone? I didn't even know their name or exact seat. Just a random live stream, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. The camera settled near a merchandise stand. The streamer's hand came into frame briefly, feminine with painted nails. She waved frantically at someone off camera. I heard a muffled conversation. "He's following me," she said, voice shaky. The mic didn't catch the response, but I saw a security guard's uniform come into view. Relief washed over me. She was getting help, just like I wanted her to. For a moment, the camera faced the floor, showing sneakers and spilled popcorn. The chat expressed relief, but remained anxious. After a minute or so, the camera lifted, revealing the security guard walking beside the streamer, guiding her toward a quieter area. They said something about checking the stands. I tried to decode their words. "We'll look for him, wait here." The fan said, "Okay," voice trembling. The guard left. The camera showed a deserted hallway behind the stadium's main concourse, a place fans don't usually go. The streamer must have felt safer away from the crowd. She was breathing heavily, maybe crying. I typed encouragement in the chat. "Stay strong, you're safe now." Many others did the same. Suddenly, a shuffle of movement. The camera jerked toward a door at the far end of the hallway. It burst open, and the man in the cap stood there, startlingly close. The streamer let out a gasp, the camera shook wildly. I screamed at my laptop, my pulse racing. How did he find her again? The man stepped forward slowly. The streamer backed away, her camera pointed downward, capturing shoes and legs. She cried out for help. The audio crackled with her panic. I felt powerless, clenching my fists. The chat erupted in frantic messages. Run? Call 911. Someone help her? In the video, the man's voice finally emerged. Low, muffled, saying something like, "No one here to save you now." Chills shot down my spine. The streamer shouted, "Stay back!" The camera swung around, disorienting us. She must have tried to flee, but I heard a thump. Maybe she slipped or he grabbed her arm. The screen shook violently. I wanted to call the stadium security, but I didn't even know the exact location. The show was at MetLife near NYC and I was in Queens, but what could I do at midnight from my apartment? I considered calling the police, but what would I tell them? A stranger on a live stream is being harassed? They wouldn't know where to start. The camera went dark briefly, then flickered back. The angle was off, as if the phone was on the ground. I saw the man's sneakers, the streamer's legs partially in frame. She pleaded, "Please, don't." He hissed, "Shut up." My heart pounded. Tears pricked my eyes. This was too real, too horrifying. Then, a sudden commotion off-screen. Footsteps, voices echoing. The man whirled toward the sound, cursing under his breath. He sprinted off, disappearing through the door. The streamer sobbed, scrambling to pick up her phone. I saw a glimpse of a security guard rushing in, another person behind him. They must have heard her screams. The camera steadied, showing the guard helping her stand. She cried, "He found me." Twice, the guard radioed urgently, describing the suspect. The chat flooded with relief and comforting words. The streamer, voice shaking, said something like, "Thank you? Oh my God." She apologized for the chaos, saying she only wanted to share the concert experience with everyone. The guard told her to stay put until they got her to a safe exit. I exhaled, tears rolling down my face. Watching helplessly from my living room, I felt both relieved and traumatized. This poor fan came to enjoy Beyoncé's music and ended up hunted by a stranger. The guard guided her down a corridor, and we caught glimpses of stage lights reflecting through distant passages. The show might still be going on out there, thousands unaware of this nightmare unfolding backstage. The streamer mumbled apologies for the shaky camera, the detour. The chat spewed love and support. Some demanded she end the live stream and focus on her safety. But she said, "I want witnesses." I understood that desperate logic. If something else happened, we'd all see it. She had thousands watching, powerless but present. Eventually, the guard led her to an office or lounge area where 2 more staff members waited. She thanked everyone, voice quivering, and finally ended the live stream, saying, "I'm safe now, they're helping me." The screen went black. I sat in stunned silence. I just watched a horrifying situation unfold live. I felt guilty for not being able to help, but glad I stayed, at least offering moral support. The chat vanished with the stream's end, leaving me alone in my apartment, the distant city noise suddenly hollow. Sleep was impossible that night. I scoured social media for updates. Some viewers posted clips, begging for confirmation she was truly okay. Hours later, a short tweet from the streamer's account appeared. "I'm safe. Stadium security escorted me out. Police notified. Thank you all." Relief washed over me. Days passed. I learned no more details. Did they catch him? Probably not. Another predator slipping through the cracks. The memory haunted me. Concert should be uplifting. Yet even amid thousands, darkness can find a victim. The live stream reminded me how fragile our sense of safety is, even in a crowd, even with technology connecting us. I still love Beyoncé's music, but every time I recall that live stream, I remember her frightened voice, the man's chilling appearance, and the helplessness I felt from miles away. It taught me a grim truth. Even when we celebrate music and community, predators lurk, and we must remain vigilant. We must protect ourselves and others, offering help if we sense danger. It might make a difference next time. I hold on to the fact that she escaped, that security intervened, that he didn't succeed in whatever he planned. In a world where joy can turn to terror in an instant, knowing she survived and found help is a small comfort.